Good morning. I love running. I may be the world's slowest runner, but I love running. And I've been running for about 25 years. The only brand of shoes that I will wear when I run are Nikes. What has Nike done to inspire that kind of brand loyalty? How has Nike seduced me? Well, I thought about it a little bit, and at first I thought, well, maybe it's because Nike has all sorts of really innovative technology in its products. But honestly, I kind of buy one of the lower end models of Nike, so I'm not getting the benefit of the triple mesh flex lunar glide blah 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 technology. Well, then I thought, maybe it's because they have really cool celebrity endorsements. And they have some really cool celebrities: LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan back in the day. But you know, last year when that whole thing with Lance Armstrong happened, I realized that I don't care who else wears Nike shoes. The only person that I care about is me. It's all about me. You know, that's what Nike does. Nike understands me. They understand why I run, even though I'm the world's slowest runner. They understand how I feel when I run. They get me, or the me that I want to be. Nike inspires me. And that's how they've seduced me. So I wanted to understand this and maybe, validate it, quantify it a little bit. So I looked into Nike and other brands, and I realized that the way Nike has inspired my love and loyalty has very little to do with the actual products they sell. And they've inspired the loyalty and love of millions of other people also by not really doing much about their products. Here's what I discovered about Nike. I knew that "Just Do It" was probably one of the most well-known taglines of all time, right? But what I discovered is it's much more than just a pithy, creative phrase. It really embodies a principle that many great brands live out. Here's what I mean. Back in the 1980s, the CEO of Nike, Phil Knight at the time, wanted to create a campaign that would celebrate the brand's role in fueling the jogging craze that was sweeping across America. So the agency came up with a campaign that was shot on the University of Oregon, where Nike's first shoes were created. It featured famous runners like Steve Prefontaine, and it was just glorious. It was meant to be a very stunning and provocative campaign, and it was. When it was previewed in front of Nike sales managers at an annual meeting, the spots were met with reverential silence. And that was not the inspired, enthusiastic response that Phil Knight was looking for. So he sent the agency back to the drawing board. And the chief marketing officer at the time, Scott Bedbury, observed, the problem with those ads was that they celebrated Nike, not our customers. He said it was probably the best example of corporate navel-gazing there ever was. So he instructed the agency to widen the access point for the Nike brand for its customers, and 2 weeks later, the agency came back with a very different campaign. It showed people. Amateur and pro athletes doing what athletes do: running, jumping, sweating, grunting, squatting, all that stuff. And each person, there was a spot that had like a female triathlete, an 80-year-old long-distance runner, a pro basketballer. Each one of those people spoke with great emotion about what they did and why they did it. And then the spots ended with that 3-word appeal: just do it. And Scott Bedbury wrote, "Just do it" was not about sneakers. It was about values. We weren't selling products. We were communicating a brand ethos. Just Do It is a prime example of how seducing and attracting people through emotion trumps pushing product. The campaign ran for 10 straight years. And I think the success is because it allowed just real people to talk about the emotional rewards of what they did. And they never once mentioned Nike, and yet as soon as the spots ran, sales shot up, and the company heard from tons of people that said, you know, that Just Do It inspired me. It inspired me to get fit. It also inspired me to quit a job, to leave a bad relationship. That's what Nike does. They inspire people. You know, what I'm trying to communicate is that Nike is an innovative company, but quite frankly, many of their competitors are just as innovative. Their brand success comes, and this was the quote I was supposed to show before. Nike's brand success comes from the consistent use of experiences and messages that inspire people to feel like athletes. They know that people don't make product decisions based on features and technologies. They make product decisions based on how products make them feel and the identities that they help them experience and express. So that's why Nike, like many other great brands, actually avoid selling products. Brands from Method Home Products to the BMW Mini and everything in between, their success can be attributed to attracting consumers and engaging in an emotional relationship with them. So once I discovered this kind of counterintuitive principle, great brands avoid selling products, I started looking more into what great brands do. And I looked at a range of brands, some of the world's most well-known, greatest brands, Apple, Starbucks, Amazon, Zappos. I also looked at some smaller companies that were developing emerging brands, Chobani, Basecamp, Shake Shack. And what I discovered is that all of these great brands have several things in common. There are certain distinctive, defining characteristics that these great brands live out. So I want to share a few more with you. And I think that you'll find that they might be just as surprising as avoiding selling products. Because, for example, I wonder how many of you have thought, if we could only just tap into the latest trend, that would be great. You know, if you're a restaurant company, if we could just tap into that healthy eating trend, figure that out. Or, you know, everyone has a mobile offering, or mobile phone, so we need to have a mobile offering. Well, what I discovered is that great brands don't follow trends, they ignore them. And in fact, in many cases, they challenge trends. Like the great brand that was created when a lowly line cook decided to challenge the trend that was going on in the fast food industry. Back in the kind of early 90s, the US was undergoing a severe recession, and all of the fast feeders were kind of in a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. Taco Bell, that's when they launched their 59, 79, 99-cent menu. But then there was a guy who loved burritos. His name was Steve Ells. And he decided to challenge that trend of low price, cheap food and fast food and offer a higher fare of quality Mexican food. That's how Chipotle Mexican Grill was born. He decided that he wanted to offer better quality ingredients, prepared fresh, right in front of you, in a store environment that at that time was several steps up from their typical fast food experience. And he ushered in this whole new category of restaurants, fast casual. That's why we now have everything from like a Panera to a Smashburger that are thriving in this category. he did that by challenging those fast feeders. And challenging is really in Chipotle's DNA. In this most recent recessionary period, when again, fast feeders were headed towards low prices, Steve decided he wasn't happy with the quality of his carnitas burrito. So he asked his team to source a higher quality pork, and they ended up having to raise the price of that product by $1. What happened? Sales of that product actually doubled, and it remains one of the most successful products on their menu. So Chipotle ignores trends. Just like other great brands, they don't sit or operate in reactive mode, sitting back, waiting to see what bandwagon they should jump on. Instead, they try to identify an idea that's out in the horizon that would be relevant to their brand values and their brand positioning, and then they discover ways to advance it to their advantage. Just like how now Chipotle is advancing the movement of sustainable food in the fast food industry. They're leading the way and showing people what this might look like. So great brands ignore trends. The next principle I discovered by researching some not so great brands. So much has been written and analyzed and said about the problems that JCPenney has had. And I really wanted to get to the bottom of it. I really wanted to understand what was going on there. And in my research, what I discovered is underpinning JCPenney's failed pricing strategy, their failed town square store design, and their failed advertising campaign was a central, critical failure. And that is, apparently Ron Johnson and his team decided that their brand was too good for their current customers. So they went looking for other customers, hipper, more sophisticated ones. I found that same thing when I looked at McDonald's most recent sales struggles. Their growth has slowed, and the CEO came out and said, we've got a relevance problem. What I discovered in looking into them is that they have allowed innovation to distract them, and they've turned their back on their core family customer. So with an initiative like McCafe, they're going after Starbucks customers as opposed to satisfying their own. More recently, I read about how the Coors Miller Brewing Company is introducing a whiskey-flavored beer called Fortune. Fortune is intended to appeal to the drinkers of Maker's Mark and Jack Daniels. But based on everything that I've read, it's unlikely that the product is going to appeal to them, and it's only going to alienate the beer-loving drinkers that were once very loyal to Coors Miller. Each of these brands is doing the exact opposite of what great brands do. They're chasing customers. But great brands, Red Bull, Lululemon, Oakley, don't chase customers. Instead, they attract the people who are destined to be their most loyal following customers by projecting their brand identities insistently and clearly like a lighthouse. Now that contrasts very sharply with a more common spotlight approach. The spotlight approach happens when brand managers analyze scores of category data to try to identify who are the most profitable customers in this category, and then what do they want and need, and then how can we make sure that we provide what those people want. The problem with pursuing spotlight customers is that it often pulls companies off of their core competencies and off of their brand messages. And like the kind of nerdy teenager that tries to go after the cheerleading captain, these brands fail to attract their target, and they fail to meet their own expectations as well. Great brands don't squander their equity, their precious brand equity, by chasing after elusive customers. They know that consumers find great appeal among brands that are very clear about what they stand for. So brands in this space, I think, project their brand lights consistently, clearly, insistently, saliently, like a lighthouse, and invite people to navigate around them. Lady Gaga operates like a lighthouse. You see, I discovered that people can be great brands too, and Lady Gaga is a great brand when you look at all the metrics in terms of ticket sales, album sales, numbers of awards, types of awards, being named Time Magazine's most influential person. She got that way by being very clear about what she was, what she stood for, and what she valued, unapologetically. And she's inspired a legion of little monsters who follow her and love her as a result. Her manager once said, you know, we cater to a very, very, very specific audience. It's an audience that Lady Gaga wants to be able to play to 20 years from now. So we have to be very careful that she maintains her loyalty and integrity among that audience. Lady Gaga's light shone brightly a couple years ago when she faced resistance on her international tour. Some conservative groups were pressuring her, kind of threatening to ban her concerts if she didn't tone down some aspects of her performance. But she and her manager made it very clear that they would rather cancel their concerts than try to appeal to her protesters, because those aren't her target. So this just goes to show that Lady Gaga, like other great brands, knows that when you stand for something clearly, some people will love you, some people will hate you, but the people who love you will buy your product, they'll go out of the way to be a part of your brand, and they'll stick with you through thick and thin. Even now, as Lady Gaga seems to be having some troubles, her fans are there for her. The last principle I want to share with you is something that I came across in my research of brands like one that is typically known for making trains and turbine engines, talking about Mother Nature and showing flowers. Then there was an apparel retailer that was telling customers not to buy their products. And then a restaurant chain that was doing more to address the recession than just simply lowering their prices. What I found in each one of these cases and many other examples is that there's kind of a new movement going on in the area known traditionally as corporate social responsibility. These great brands didn't seem to be doing things that were about giving back and then feeling good. In fact, they were doing things that didn't seem to have very much to do with giving back at all. You know, Patagonia's mission is to create the best product, do no unnecessary harm, and use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. One way that Patagonia lives out this mission is through Footprint Chronicles. Footprint Chronicles is an initiative that documents for every product that Patagonia makes how it was made. So from the raw materials through the manufacturing, through the distribution, all the way to the point where us as customers buy the products. As such, Footprint Chronicles is creating extraordinary value for the different groups of people that are involved in their business. For us as customers and outsiders, Footprint Chronicles offers a great window into the company. We can actually see, is the company really living by their mission? Are they really doing what they say? And then we can judge whether or not we want to do business with them based on our assessment. That's of tremendous value to customers. But internally, Footprint Chronicles creates value for the people who work on Patagonia because they have more focus and alignment. The company has made it kind of a public commitment. They made a corporate priority that we're going to focus on the way that we make our products. So they make decisions that are more on brand and more aligned with our mission every day much more easily. Footprint Chronicles is great for shareholders because it's actually driven Patagonia to develop a more efficient supply chain and to be more efficient in their manufacturing processes, so they're lowering costs. And of course, Footprint Chronicles reduces the company's impact on the environment. So Patagonia is creating value that's shared by everyone who's involved with their business. And Footprint Chronicles is only one of many ways that Patagonia is creating shared value. They're constantly exploring the societal and cultural relevance of their brand to identify new ways to create shared value. When you create shared value, you never have to give back. So CSV, creating shared value, is replacing CSR, corporate social responsibility. You know, there's nothing wrong with giving back. Giving back is good, but great brands seem to be asking themselves, why merely do good when we can actually be great? And so that's why they've shifted the way that they've approached making a social impact. They think about it less as an obligation, something I'm expected to do. Every good, responsible company does these sorts of things, to an opportunity. How can we create value for the different people who are involved in our business? And they've shifted their decision filters about what things to do and what things not to do based on not responsibilities like, okay, let's develop a list of things we need to do and then check them off the box and say, okay, we're done, but rather ways to achieve relevance, greater relevance with the different people who are involved with our business. So that's an example of how Patagonia and other great brands never have to give back. So those are 4 principles that separate great brands from the rest. They avoid selling products. They ignore trends. They don't chase customers. And great brands never have to give back. Now, actually, there are more than these 4 that I discovered. There are actually 7. They're in my book. I'd encourage you to check them out. In fact, I will be out in the lobby with my books. Also, on your table are cards that if you are interested in learning more about the book, getting access to downloadable tools from the book, or even the assessment that I have that goes along with the book, you can go ahead and fill this out. But even if you don't fill it out, I encourage you to tear off the perforation. This business card sized card has all 7 principles on it so that you can carry it around and kind of remind yourself every once in a while about the principles that great brands live out. Now, I want to be careful that in the way that I've set all of this up, that I haven't led you to think that each one of these principles is a standalone strategy that can be kind of picked and chose like a Chinese menu. Oh, well, I'll do this, I won't do that. What I've discovered in my research is that great brands, that these principles are part of an integrated, indivisible whole. And great brands implement an entire management approach that separates them from the rest. Essentially, what great brands do is they conceive of their brands differently. They think about and they go about building their brands differently. Instead of thinking about their brands as an external message to promote, like in a tagline or a logo or advertising, they conceive of their brands as strategic platforms that they use as management tools to fuel, align, and guide everything they do. And they operationalize their brands as the most critical way of managing and growing their business. All of this has led me to conclude that it would be wrong to determine that great brands got to be great because of good timing or creative advertising or just plain luck. If you look into it the way that I did, you'll see that great brands have employed specific techniques that have elevated brand building from a niche marketing function to the core driver of their business. And that is what has turned them into industry icons. Greatness doesn't just happen. Good is the enemy of great. You have a choice. I hope you will choose to be great. Thank you.